He's a longtime American Red Cross volunteer and the recipient of life-saving blood. Dan, the dancing machine Terrio. He hates when I call him that. Welcome to the DWOS Diaries.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for having me.
I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist with the Denny Terrio reference. So how did you first get involved with Dancing with Our Stars and volunteering with events and whatnot? How did you first enter this world?
Well, I often say, especially when it comes to DWOS, my whole involvement goes right back to Jody Wires. Jody was the reason I got familiar with Dancing with Our Stars, and Jody was the reason that I participated in Dancing with Our Stars. So when she competed it was 2014, she had a huge party at Green Bay Distillery as part of her fundraising. And she gave me a call. I was working for the Green Bay Chamber at that time and was like, hey, I need some volunteers. Are you willing to come help out? And I was like, absolutely. And that's when I got the first glimpse of Dancing with Our Stars, and especially the following that came with it. Oh gosh, there I am. And of course, still can't take a serious photo. I'm right in the back there.
There's Dan right there, folks.
But I think it was, oh yeah. And I think I was selling raffle tickets that night with Janessa, who ended up becoming a volunteer for my campaign when I did it. So in 2015, Jody invited me again to come volunteer for the 2015 Dancing with Our Stars. And there I was full-blown volunteer crew. I met PETA at that event. Didn't think at all that I would even remotely consider taking the floor the following year. And I still remember actually, it was Sharon Brzezinski coming up to me. And this is the first time that I had formally got to talk to her. And she grabs my ass and goes, you have an ass for ballroom. And so I still remember that. I'm like, oh my God, who are these people? But it was after that event, a month later, Jody announces that she is moving to Madison. And about an hour later, I get an email from you asking me to join the cast that year. So after mulling it over a little bit, I emailed actually my staff contact at Humana at that time, Val Szymanski, who was a longtime volunteer like me, and was like, what do you think of this? And her response back was, in big capital letters, do it. And there was no twisting arms after that. I was sold.
You were all in. You were ready to jump in, and there's a photo from the kickoff party. So what do you remember? I mean, this obviously kind of makes it real. I mean, there's no backing out once you've signed on this dotted line.
It makes it real. Obviously, getting to meet the other people that would be going on this journey with me, but even just having my family there, my friends there, and I talked about this now for several months, them being able to see like, okay, this is for real, he's actually going to do this, and actually being able to talk about it, because I signed on in March and it was really hard to keep my mouth shut. So there was a few people that knew about it, but I didn't let it get out, and finally I could openly talk about it at that point. So it was really exciting to finally make it official and get rocking and rolling on the campaign.
I noted it in the open that you received life-saving blood at one point in your life. So you're one of those people that has a very strong Red Cross story, which I'm sure you knew was going to help in your campaign. So tell us what your Red Cross story is.
Absolutely. Well, in 1997, I was 13 years old. And it was just an average Friday. My mom, my brother, and I were on our way from our home, which is in Bowler, Wisconsin, to nearby town Shawano, which is where you do your grocery shopping and get the basic things that you need. We were taking a country road that we would take every single Friday that would take us to the highway. And I remember I was sitting in the back seat, and my mom was turning around to yell at me like mothers will normally do. They'll lean back and just start yelling at you. I don't know if I did something, but I remember we approached a little village outside of the town of Gresham, and we were about to cross these train tracks that we've never seen a train go through there ever. As she was looking at me, she said something, she turned around, and at the front of our van was a train. And the train caught the front of our van, dragged us about a half a mile down the tracks with all three of us ejected from the vehicle. And then moments later, the van burst into flames. I don't remember any of the impact. All I remember is screaming. And then the next thing I know is I'm on the ground. I can't feel any of my extremities. I feel the warmth of the van. So we were all ejected, and van burst into flames. My mom suffered life-threatening injuries. My brother cuts and bruises, and then me, I suffered a head injury, an injury to my elbow, complete trash. Like my knee was completely blown out, and then also an issue with my heart. But the head injury actually caused me to lose significant amounts of blood. That on the way to the hospital, I actually flatlined. They were able to revive me to get me to the ER. And then once in the ER, I flatlined again. They realized it was due to the lack of blood. And it was at that point I received several units of blood that ultimately saved my life, kept me here. That was the first obstacle, but then learning to walk again, I had to have my knee completely reconstructed. Was the next challenge. And so for about 6 months, 5 to 6 months, I spent most of my time in a wheelchair. I couldn't put weight on my leg at all due to, it's a knee replacement, getting familiar with the space and really growing into it. And finally in February of '98, I was able to take my first steps. But after that, I realized that I'm one of the fortunate people to be able to see firsthand the life-saving power of the American Red Cross. And from there, I decided that I would become a volunteer. And that became my first volunteer opportunity at the age of still 13, pretty close to 14. I brought a blood drive to our school that we were able to start donating and making sure that our community was engaged. And that's really how it began. Certified CPR first aid, and then eventually got involved in state and national youth advocacy, which kind of took me to Washington, D.C. at the age of 17. So, but the Red Cross has been a centerpiece of my life and the centerpiece of my family's life for years. My dad's a longtime blood donor. We donate money every single year. My family, not just my immediate family, but the rest of my family are involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it be as a blood donor, whether it be as a disaster donator, so donating supplies for disasters, really engaged in all the different facets of the Red Cross. And it's a centerpiece of our family due to what we were given in '97, that support and the second chance at life.
We'll get to the fundraising in a bit, but first the dancing portion. So what do you remember? Now you were part of the last group that performed 2 dances. So what do you remember about deciding what dance and what style of dance you would do?
Well, I still remember my first lesson at Simply Ballroom, and I remember walking in, I was scared as hell because this is the first time I've ever danced with a partner. I've done a lot of like theater dancing, so a lot of box squares and spirit fingers and stuff like that, but I've never done any type of formal ballroom. So I was scared out of my mind walking into that studio. And Nina, she still brings up to this day, she's like, you were awkward as hell walking in that first day. It is because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I signed up for. Initially, when I showed up at Simply Ballroom, I was given a different partner. So I was assigned a different individual who I was going to dance with. Down the line, there was just some conflicts that came up with the individual, and the decision was to pull that individual and pair me with Mina, which worked out great because Mina, the one thing that I learned about her is that she learns dancing very similarly to me, whether it be, you know, really explaining it out, counting beats. I have a musical and theater background, so being able to understand where beats are, it really helped in the actual dancing. So it really complemented me well to have her as a partner. And I trusted her. She figured out how to teach me and how I could pick it up, and the rest was just history. But for the dances, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no clue. Initially, we had planned on doing a quick step for the ballroom round. And then we wanted to do a samba mambo mashup for the rhythm round. And it was after a while, the quick step was down. We ended up doing it to Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous by Good Charlotte, which is a song that's just, it's really upbeat, but it kind of ties into the fun side of me, which we really wanted to showcase that personality. Those who know me well know that I am a celebrity pop culture, like that is my thing. I'm suckered into all of that. You throw a question at me regarding something involving celebrity pop culture, I can throw you an answer right back. So that was really to play off that whole piece. As we were rehearsing though, and I was traveling a lot for work, and there was a moment on an airplane where I was flying back from a trip for work where I had this vision that this beat, it was like that, kept playing in my head, and Mina and I were dancing to it. And I woke up and I looked at my iPod at that point, or my phone, and it was the song Titanium by David Guetta featuring Sia. And when I stopped and listened to the lyrics of the song and actually listened to it again, it really spoke to my journey through life, where literally everything has been thrown at me. I've had, you know, different obstacles in my life, you know, obviously learning to walk again, and, you know, you shoot me down, but I get up, I am titanium. And it just really fit. And it would have been remiss for Mina and I to not perform a dance that paid tribute to my journey to that point. It was 18 years when I was in that accident, and how that really brought me clarity. And literally things have been thrown at me in my entire life, but I still rise above that. And it is almost like I was bulletproof. And so after talking through this dream, I was with Mina and I said, we can't do that samba mambo dance. This is the song. Is there some way we can do this? And then we eventually settled on a West Coast swing, but that dance was very, very personal, based on that dream that I had on an airplane. So.
Wow, what a story. And we will review the dances coming up in a bit, but as far as the fundraising is concerned, your campaign really centered around a major event. So tell us all about Throwback Prom, where that idea came from, and then how you went about executing it.
Well, Throwback Prom was actually an idea that I had when I worked for a nonprofit organization in Green Bay. I was out for coffee. It was in 2012, and Jenny Nazi, who is on your screen right now, her and I were out for coffee. And at that point, I was working for an organization. We put on an event that raised money for post-prom and post-grad night parties. And we held a prom fashion show and all sorts of stuff there. But the conversation centered around that we kept hearing parents wanting to experience prom night all over again. And so Jenny is like, we should put on this adult prom. And I'm like, this is a great idea. So I go back to the organization I was working for. I was like, this is the idea I've got. I can rally all these people. What do you think? And they're just like, no, will never happen. This event, who would come to an adult prom is the exact words. And so the idea got shelved, and I think it was actually at the 2015 event when people were like, Dan, you should do Dancing with Our Stars. And I'm like, go to hell. I'm not going to do this. And they were like, well, what would you do as your main fundraiser? I'm like, well, if I did it, this is what I would do. And I said, I want to do an adult prom. Every area in Wisconsin has one except for Green Bay. Why is that? And so as soon as I signed on, I called Jenny and I said, I'm doing Dancing with Our Stars. Don't tell anybody. But with that, we're also doing a prom. And it worked out perfectly because I work in the wedding and event industry. I'm a DJ on the side of my day job. And I had all of the contacts. I had the DJ, I had the florist, I had the event planner, I had the location, I had everything on contact that literally I made a phone call. Everyone's like, yes, we're in for this, that everything just lined up. And so the next piece of this was getting people there. And I still remember I was on a trolley with 30 people and we were bar hopping. And of course, I'm freaking out because I'm like, who's going to show up to this? And I remember turning around the corner at Brett Favre's Steakhouse in 2016. And there were people lined out the door trying to get in. The parking lot was packed. We brought in over 200 people that year. And it kind of just blew up from there that we ended up doing it for another 4 years. But Jenny was instrumental in that. She was our first prom queen. I think we raised about 10K at that event, but people were dressed to the nines. You had people dressed from modern all the way over to the 1980s. It was just such a feel-good event. And to see people there having a great time, it just really cemented the foundation for the event going forward.
And talk
about awesome volunteers.
Oh yeah, great crew there. So talk about the fundraising that went into that event, specifically, you know, the prom court and what they were tasked with doing.
Well, what we were tasked with, you know, when you think about a prom, you have a prom court, but how do you pick the king and queen out of that? And since this overall concept is a fundraiser, we thought, why should I hold on to all of that fundraising when I'm doing the majority of it? Why not give it to people to kind of spread their wings and grab their contacts? And so from there, we developed what we refer to as the Dash for Cash. And what happens is we had, that year it was 4 guys, 4 girls, and they had 1 month to raise as much money as they could. $1 equaled one vote. And then the night of, they take any cash checks that they have, they can throw it into a bucket, and then they will run around for 30 minutes. And whatever gets thrown into that bucket, along with online pledges, the guy and the girl with the most money at the end of the night will be crowned prom king and queen. And it was so awesome to see, because I think one of our prom court members that year actually committed that if he's able to raise, I think, $200, he will match that additional $200, and that's what kept going. So it was almost like people were trying to one up on each other. And so it was pretty neat to see, but it was kind of like a mini Dancing with Our Stars in a way, where it's that same concept that dancing had, but we put it to the prom piece. And it became one of the most popular pieces of this event, because people were able to put their money where their mouth is. If you want somebody to be prom king or prom queen, you donate that money.
Prom was that first prom was a great time, and it came about a month or so before Dancing with Our Stars 2016. So let's fast forward to that event. How are you feeling as you head to the KI Convention Center for the day of the event?
It's a range of emotions. I think with me having the theater background, it kind of reminded me of opening night. It reminded me of the jitters, the excitement, but also just the feeling of enjoy this, to enjoy the moment. And I still remember getting up. I think I was up at like 5 in the morning because I really couldn't sleep. I was so overloaded with energy of the night that I went for a walk just to really clear my head. And then it was action time. I had to pack my car up, get ready to move over to the KI, get my table set up, and then prepared for dress rehearsal. And, you know, walking in there, it's kind of surreal, because I was at the event the year prior as a volunteer, and here I am now as a star dancer. Like, what the hell am I doing? But then you're standing there and you're just absorbing all of that energy before the crowd gets there. And then it's smooth sailing from there. And then when your family and friends are showing up and they're super pumped to celebrate with you that night, it's an awesome feeling, and it's something that I still remember to this day how I felt that day. I was very calm, cool, and collected, and just ready to have a good time.
And you certainly did that. And we've got a couple pictures from both of your performances. So I know you mentioned these earlier, but yeah, talk us through these again. So what do we have here?
So this is from our quick step, and the whole concept is Mina and I are kind of clueless celebrities. Like, we think our shit don't stink. We walk around with all this money, and that's what matters. And what a lot of people don't know is that the colors that we chose, the green is to symbolize money, but it's also Humana green for the logo. So it was also to pay tribute to my employer, who so generously allowed me to do it. But it was really fun playing that part. Yeah, this is one of the moves we did. I was picking her up all over the place. I think Cammie Rapson actually made the comment that night that I was thrown through the ringer throughout the entire thing, because I had Mina up on my shoulders, throwing her around and carrying her in, and I still was able to do the dance.
And then this was the West Coast Swing.
This is our West Coast Swing, and it was to Titanium. And this dance, of course, was very special to me because of the story that I told earlier about, literally having all this weight on your shoulders and finally being able to lift it off. So the concept is Mina actually is the weight, is the baggage that people carry. And so with me carrying her in to the floor, it's that symbolization of carrying that weight and me being able to hold on to that, but finally letting go. And this is actually, I love ballroom faces. I mean, the faces that people give during dances, it's kind of like watching somebody run a marathon. Like even looking here, but actually this moment is about symbolizing that joy, that sometimes that baggage can bring you joy. And then finally, by the end of the routine, I let her go. She lies dead, and I walk away as a way of letting go of all of that baggage and starting anew.
How did you feel at that moment?
In that moment, actually, I think I collapsed to my knees. I just lost it, because it was, while I was able to get through the routine, physically, from a dance perspective, emotionally, I was letting go of something that I've held on to for almost 18 years. And it was liberating, but at the same time, very, very poetic. And Mina, she's the first person I grabbed onto after that. I remember getting down, and everyone's like, is he injured? And it was more being in that moment and just realizing that I'm free. I'm able to let it go and be able to move forward. And I was happy that I didn't fall, or that none of us fell, because Mina fell in the first routine, but she pulled it off so well. And yeah, it was great, but she got one up on me. We're even now it was 2018.
So this event is done, but you make the decision to continue prom. So how did you come to making that decision?
Well, I think you were there for that decision. It was shortly after the first prom that we're sitting there, we're counting the money, paying bills, and I think you had said to me, you have something here. You have something here. And I'm just like, could I do this? And I think the more I mulled it over, I'm like, it was such an easy event to put on that let's do it. Let's do it again. And it's got a following. So that kind of set the tone, going forward. So we did it again in the 2017 campaign. And this time for prom court, kind of how it worked out was it was all the competitors from the 2017 cast of Dancing with Our Stars. So same concept. They had to fundraise for their to win prom king and queen, but those monies then were put towards their individual pot, and then the overall proceeds went to the entire group. And
what was the theme for that event?
It was It was Enchantment Under the Sea, which was the theme from the dance at Back to the Future.
And what are we looking at in this photo?
So we went with, this is Mina Whitty, who, if people who know her well knows that her dream is to be a mermaid. I'm like, you got to get a mermaid tail. And she actually hung out in the DeLorean, which was in the middle of the room, which was donated by the Automotive Gallery, which I still, to this day, I can't believe we got them to let me borrow that DeLorean. And I remember them pulling this in and they're like, here's the keys. And they're like, wait, do you want to take it for a spin? So I'm driving this DeLorean out in the parking lot of the Green Bay Distillery. And they're like, you can take it home with you the night of, just as long as we have it back here Sunday. I'm like, you know, it's insane. But Mina, actually for an additional $5, I think a donation of $10 or more, she would get her picture taken with any person that wanted to get into DeLorean. So she had people on her lap, strangers that she's never met, but she was a great sport, but she loved it because she got to be a mermaid finally.
And you had, yeah, you mentioned the participants. So we've got the prom king there.
Dr. Ryan Martin, who he raised, I want to say he raised about 1,500 or 2,000, I can't remember. He knocked it out of the park. He did a huge campaign at UW Green Bay, so and he was paired with Mina, who was my partner, so of course we had to do celebratory shots.
And the prom queen.
And the prom queen, Emily Matesic, who was, I think she was gathering donations while she was spearfishing out on Lake Winnebago. She was an awesome sport to be able to pull that off really quick, to gather as much money as she possibly could. And I remember crowning her and how thrilled she was. Obviously, you can see in her face how excited she was. And she actually volunteered the year prior at the first Throwback Prom, so it was really awesome to have her win that crown that year.
Another great event, and we'll there's more prom to come. But after the 2016 event that you participated in, the decision was made that 2018 would be the 10th and final year of Dancing with Our Stars. And it had always been my dream for the 10th anniversary to be an all-star event where we bring back past participants. So you get done with 2016, and I'm already talking with you about doing all-stars. How did that conversation go?
It was 2 days after the 2016 event, Sean. I couldn't even cope. I was still in like a DWOS depression, which it is real.
It is real. It is real.
Who spends a year of their life doing events, and you are just emotionally distraught. And I remember I'm texting all these people like, I miss you, I just want to see you again. And you know, you're just trying to get back to some normalcy. And I still remember you texted me and you're like, so 2018 question mark? And I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. Okay, I just finished this, just give me a breather here. So, you know, then the thoughts start happening. And I remember talking to Mina, and Mina's like, of course you gotta do it. I wanna dance with you again. And it was all of that. But then there was the part of me that was like, you know, I had such a great experience during 2016. It was not only physically exhausting, but really emotionally, it was, I experienced something emotionally that I haven't had in a long time. And it was just such a positive experience that I didn't think I'd be able to replicate it. So then I had to go to the person that I know that would tell me honestly to do it. And that was my mom, who I will say she had more fun during the campaign in 2016 than I did. Like she, even after it was done, she goes, well, what are we gonna do? I mean, there's no events that we can go to. And she was DWOS on board. She loved it. And so I said, I got this offer to do the All-Star edition in 2018. You know, what do you think about this? And she says, you do realize that in 2017 is the 20-year anniversary of the accident. And I said, huh. And She said, and if you remember in February of 1998, you walked again for the first time. Huh. So about a month later, I had to go in for a routine checkup with my orthopedic surgeon, just post DWOS, just to see how everything held up. And I asked him there, I said, what do you have in my record of the day that I took my first steps after the accident? And he opened this file, which was like this, and you saw graphs in there of the knee structure and everything, and he flashed in there, and it said right in there, February 24th, 1998. I then looked at the text that you had sent me, and you said the event will be on February 24th, 2018. Huh. It was kind of like divine intervention telling me that you got to do this. This, what a way to celebrate 20 years of life, 20 years of service, because in April of that year, of 2018 would be my 20-year anniversary with the Red Cross, but also 20 years of walking, being able to walk again by dancing. So it was like the stars had aligned, and I think I texted you back right after. I'm like, I'm in, count me in.
And you were in, and you would pair up with Mina again, but in the lead up to Dancing with Our Stars 2018, something happened in her life. And that is that she got pregnant. So what wrench?
She got pregnant.
How did that alter plans as far as moving forward with dance rehearsals and whatnot? And we'll get to the dance that you chose in a second. But her being pregnant, how did that affect things?
It didn't really affect too much, other than we couldn't do lifts. We couldn't do anything that would involve putting her and her unborn child at risk. So she treated it just as a normal lesson. It's just without lifts. This would be where a lift is and that sort of thing. But, initially when I had heard she was expecting, I'm like, oh God, how is this going to work out? Because prior to learning, of her pregnancy, Mina, Michael, and myself, we used to get together all the time for dinner, drinks, that sort of thing. And I was over at their house, and Mina and I, and it was prior to this, I committed to doing the All-Star Edition. Her and I mapped out our entire dance, what style it was going to be, what song it was going to be to, how it was going to look, what the storyline was going to be behind, all of that. We had everything mapped out. And so when they announced that she was expecting, first off, I was very thrilled for them, because I know that this is something that they've been wanting for a while. And, it's like I get a brand new nephew or niece. But then secondly, I'm like, oh crap, I'm supposed to dance with her in February. How is this going to work out? So, but needless to say, she took it in stride, and she said, I'm giving birth. I'm due this day. My goal is to be in that dance for the end of February. There's no way I'm giving up on any of my partners. So she was a real trooper in that regards, but she did give all of us a little bit of a mini panic attack.
I remember them calling me in May when they found out, but they said, don't worry, we're going to come up with a plan. It's all going to be good. And I knew that I could trust them. They're pros, and there wasn't going to be an issue, and thankfully there wasn't. So prom, once again, the third year of prom. So talk about that event, and theme wise, and then who were the participants for this year?
Well, for this prom, in tribute of my 20 years with the Red Cross, but also in 20 years of life, I decided to have a Roaring 20s prom. So it's one of my favorite generations. We decided to move the location, Badger State Brewing Company, just to fit the whole theme, because it's got kind of that barrel house feel to it, which then we kind of called it the Roaring 20s edition, but it was also known as Prohibition Prom. So this was the first prom that actually sold out. We sold out the night before. We had about, I think, 350 people show up. So it was nice going into the event knowing that all the tickets were sold. We had very limited tickets at the door. And it was packed, and people were dressed to the nines, whether it ranging from prom attire all the way over to Roaring 20s attire. But with it being the all-star edition of Dancing with Our Stars, I made the decision to invite members of our cast, the all-star cast, to be prom court members. And so, of course, we're all fundraising into one pot, so why not just have a little bit of fun? And so I got to be on prom court that year, and it was a lot of fun.
How did that turn out for you?
I won prom king, and I won it with Lisa Pritzel, who I have nothing but good things to say about Lisa. When I decided to do Dancing with Our Stars, she was the first person I called. Her sister-in-law is a dear friend of mine, and Lisa sat down with me and walked through every idea that I had. And so she kind of gave me the assurance that I was on the right track that first year. So it was really exciting because her and I got very close from that point on. And for her and I to be prom king and queen together and to be able to walk away with those crowns, it was pretty fantastic. And she is a dear friend to this day. I love her to pieces.
Now, the night before the Dancing with Our Stars finale, we had a couple of events. Had a disco party at the convention center. But prior to that, the cast and crew had a private party with Peta and Max at 335. And I'm going to take us back a few months, back to the summer. I'm a little bit out of order here, but that's all right. I'm the host. We can go by my timeline. So I secure Peta and Max in about early July, and I go public with it and all of our media partners. Hey, they're going to be here, two-night extravaganza. And then I get a text message from Peta in, I think it was August. And you happened to be with me. We were out at the Titletown tap room. What do you remember about that text message, and just kind of what do you remember about from that night? Because this is a story that few people know about. I kept this one really close to the vest.
So should I sugarcoat this, or should I actually just lay it out there, Sean? I think I threatened to, like, if she doesn't show up, if they don't show up, I am taking her phone number and giving it to TMZ. I was threatening all this stuff. Mind you, I had drank a lot of gin at that point, so I was all over the place. I was pissed. I'm like, don't bail out on us now. Come on. Like, I was threatening to turn her phone number over to TMZ and let everybody call her. I was that mad, but I was also heavily intoxicated at that point as well.
So yeah, the text comes in that says, you know, I'm so sorry, but we're planning to go on tour, a dance tour. Max, Peta, and his brother Val, starting in January, and we'd still be on tour during Dancing with Our Stars. We've looked at trying to shut the tour down so that we can come and fulfill our commitment, but it's not making sense from a tour perspective. And certainly, you know, we never planned for this to happen, which I totally understand and believe. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she just says, I'm sick to my stomach. You know, I don't know what to do.
Peta, if you're watching this, I actually was not going to send your number to TMZ. I am so sorry. I was just really angry and really drunk. I apologize.
Well, I know the first thing I did is I said, okay, time for another round. I need another beer.
Yeah.
But then I go into problem solver mode, which I always enjoy to do because there's always has to be a way.
Yeah.
So I say, all right, the bare minimum is the public is expecting to see you at Saturday night's show being celebrity judges.
Sure.
What if you only come in for that and I fly you in and fly you out on a private plane? Mind you, I have no access to a private plane while I'm saying this.
I remember this.
At least I have some time to try and figure it out. And
And then I think the first thing I said to him, like, who do you know that has a private plane, and why are you only telling me this now? Like, you're just throwing this stuff out there, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna keep drinking. You figure this crap out.
So that piqued their interest, and she says, I think we might be able to work with this. We're meeting with the production manager tomorrow. I'll get back to you. Well, sure enough, she gets back to me and she says, if you can secure the private plane to bring us in and to get us out, we can come in for both nights, Friday and Saturday, and only shut the tour down for 2 dates. So, okay, need to go to work on getting a private plane. And the first place I went, presenting sponsor was Schneider. And I know that Schneider has a couple of corporate jets, usually not used for this, but we had 2 of their employees participating, Mary Groner and Paul Kardish. And again, they were already bought in as the presenting sponsor. So I said, hey, why not double down? This is a huge piece to the event, the entertainment piece. We've already publicly promoted it. And as a huge favor to me, as well as to the event itself, could you get your private plane? Well, of course, Paul's first question, well, where are we flying them in and out of? Well, they haven't set up the tour dates yet. I don't know that. Probably, I don't know when I'm going to know that. He says, well, as soon as you find that out, let me know. So now we're into September. We're approaching the October kickoff. And again, I kept this close to the vest. I didn't want to tell the team because I knew that that might create panic or disappointment, unneeded stress. I kept it to my inner circle as well as the American Red Cross. And I just said, give me time to figure this out. If we're into the week of the kickoff party and it hasn't been solved, then I'll tell the team. But till then, I want to try to make this right. It was about a week before the kickoff party, and I received a text message from Peter. The tour is postponed. You don't need the private plane. We can fly in commercially. And I'm thinking, thank you, God. What a relief. So I text Paul, and he says, ironically enough, I did receive approval to use the plane, which is, funny, but it made me feel a little bit good because, hey, I finally secured a private plane, but we don't.
I mean, I wonder if that offer still stands. Like, hey, I want to go to LA for the weekend. Hey, Schneider. Yeah.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, but you never know. You never know. So
I just want to throw this out there. I've been staring at this photo. I'm really bummed that I'm not staring with them at the camera. There were so many people up there that.
And we had a dedicated photographer, but then obviously, as you said, you had friends and family who were part of this, and they're all taking photos with cell phones. So it's like, what camera do I look at? And they got it right. Unfortunately, you didn't. But what do you remember from that night before?
How kind they were, and total transparency. I watched Dancing with the Stars religiously. In fact, when Donald Driver and PETA were going to dance together that year, I actually knew because I worked for the chamber, and we had heard through the grapevine that he committed to doing it. So, of course, to meet not just PETA, but also see PETA again because I met her in 2015, but to have Max there, I just wanted him to tell me that I sucked, because that's just his attitude. But he was so, kind and, gave me some advice prior to. He was just so awesome to just get to visit with.
So now we're on to All-Star Day, and we'll go through some pictures of your dance. But first of all, tell me how you're feeling going into the day, and then set up the whole story of what you decided to dance to and how you put that all together.
Same feeling as I did in 2016. It was that whole, it's opening night. Game on. Let's start. Let's get your head in the game. And I remember I went for a run that morning just to get everything loose and ready to go, and met up with you, which I did not know that you were rehearsing with Heather prior to until later on. But that's a whole other thing. But I met up for breakfast with you and Jody, and just kind of really getting ready for the day and getting, into the mindset of, okay, it's game on at this point. So, treating it just like it's a performance, ready to focus on what I'm about to do, but also to embrace that moment. And it's a big night. It's a culmination of 10 years, and to be part of that. And I mentioned this in the WBAY story that I did the day before or 2 days prior. It is one of the biggest honors of my life to be part of this history and be part of the event. And just taking that moment in and just being able to spend time with people that started out as strangers but have become family by the end of this, and just really embracing all that moment prior to, and yeah.
So the dance, the routine, how did you choose to do a contemporary, and then the story that you were going to tell through your performance?
So we made the decision that summer, as I mentioned earlier, to do a contemporary dance, to do something that's never been done in the history of the event. We wanted to really set ourselves apart. And so we decided to really take the approach of sharing the journey of the Red Cross volunteer and being at that call of service in that time of need. And so I played the volunteer responding to a disaster and being side by side with this individual to help fix them. Which kind of leads me into the song choice. And we made the decision to dance to the song Fix You by Coldplay, which is one of my favorite songs, but it has several meanings for me. When you think about the storyline of the dance, about being there in the time of need and wanting to fix somebody in that time of need, and the lyrics just really spoke to me. But it's a song that really kind of defines my 20 years of living, but also a relationship with a family member who kind of gave me that emotional boost to move forward, and that was my grandmother, who basically said, "You've been given a second chance at life. It's now up to you to take what you want from it." And it was in 2014 she passed. And I remember I was out for drinks with a friend to get my mind off of everything that was going on at home with my family, and I got the phone call that she had passed. And I got in my car, turned on the radio, and the song that was on was Fix You by Coldplay. And it was one of the most powerful moments because it was my grandma saying it was going to be okay. That, that moment she was going to fix me and everything was going to be fine. And that, when I think about my years of service, I always go into everything with the effort of making people's lives better. And that song speaks to me because it is about being that guide. And I've been so fortunate to be that for so many people. And I've had people in my life that have been that guide. My grandmother was that. And so while this dance was a tribute to the Red Cross volunteer, and the reason why we were fundraising and why we were committed to a year of dancing, but 10 years of fundraising, this was also a dedication, to my grandmother's commitment to me, to push me forward. And it was, Mina, one thing I love about her is, especially with dancing in particular, she was like, what story do you want to tell? And what do you want people to remember? And I wanted people to remember why we were there in the first place. We were there because the dollars we were raising were saving lives, and that we too can fix somebody. And every movement, which I will say contemporary was so hard to do and so hard to learn, there's something so special about that dance. But there was also something so special that happened during the dance that I didn't realize till several weeks after that. it's a song that's very special to me. It's a dance that's very special to me. And it's a moment with Nina that really cemented us, not just as dance partners, but as family, as brother and sister. And I will never forget that.
So I assume the moment you're talking about is the tumble that you took. So what were you feeling in that moment? And then in the time that has passed since then, what has all that meant to you?
So I believe I'm the first person in DWOS history to fall during a routine. I thought I had heard that. I don't know if you can confirm that or not, but
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, but you
I,
might be right.
I had heard that from several people that were like, you were the first one to fall. And I'm just like, okay, like, I don't know if I should be happy about that or really disappointed. But flashback to 2016 in our quick step, as I mentioned, Nina fell during our quick step. And what happened in the moment in 2018 is I walked back too far and my knee buckled, my bad knee buckled, and I fell. And at that point, I had Nina on my chest in almost like a bear hug. And I whispered, "We're going down." And I remember we fell, and it was a hard fall but she was fine. I was more worried about her because she had to dance after this. I was done. And I remember hearing the gasp from people in the crowd when I fell. And it felt like an eternity that I laid there and I was refusing to get up because I just was like, this is not supposed to happen. I'm just laying there. And I remember Nina being the mean Irish that she is, and she is a workhorse. She's like, get up, get up, get up. And I was in pain, like my lower back all the way down to my legs. I was in total pain, but I had to finish this routine. And got through it, did as best as I could. I didn't even know if we were on time. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted to get done. I immediately, in that moment, and even after the dance, I'm walking around and I'm embarrassed. I'm a performer, so when you fall and you're furthermore in front of 1,500 people and people who are watching at home, I'm embarrassed. And so I am, emotional for the moment that I had with Nina, but I am emotional because I'm in so much pain. But what I didn't realize in this was what that fall meant to so many people that were watching. And Max is the one who is the one that brought it out. He said, and I still remember this, that moment was almost reminiscent of your life. When you fall, you get back up and you finish what you start. And it was afterwards I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, that meant something. But in that moment, I was so embarrassed. I just did not want to be on the floor. I didn't want to show my face. I was so embarrassed. And walking back, but where it actually hit me is I was walking out with Nina, and what we had to do is after every dance, the star dancer and their pro had to get a picture taken together. And I am hobbling along, and Nina's like, we gotta hurry this up because I gotta get ready for my next dance number. I turn around, and the photographer is standing there, and she is in tears. And I'm like, why are you crying? I just fell. She said, Dan, you don't understand what that meant. Dance is not supposed to be pretty. It's supposed to mean something. And she gave me the biggest hug and got her picture taken. And then she had to go back. And then Nina took off because she had to get ready. And I walked back, and there are 4 star dancers and 2 pros that are standing there. And it looked like somebody had died. Like they were pale. But I still remember it was Terrio who said to me, you don't understand what you just did out there. You did something that nobody would touch, but you did it with so much grace. And the fact that when you fell, you got right back up and you finished. It was, Dan, it was powerful. It was a powerful moment. And it still, for me, it was just not resonating. I was so embarrassed. I just wanted to sit down. I still want to thank Barbara Bailing for bringing me a big bag of ice for my ass because I was in so much pain, and Paul Kardish for visiting with me and feeding me vodka that made me feel better. Even Jody, like I went to her, I'm like, I can't come out for your dance. And she goes, you're gonna be out there because you are good if you're not. But it didn't hit me, the impact that this dance had, even in those moments, with Max's comments, the photographer's comments, even the fellow participants, what their comments were. It didn't hit me until later on. And so it was it was very painful, but for a lot of people, surprisingly enough, my pain was powerful, and it was a very powerful moment in that event.
I certainly believe that it was meant to happen, meant to be, and I'm glad so many people recognize the importance of it. And so everything you'd been through, you're awarded People's Choice runner-up. So how did that feel?
I thought it was a joke. I actually, I'm like, is this a pity vote or is this right? And I remember when they announced my name, I had Adam Rockman and Keith Cronin right next to me, and then Nina was right there, and they announced our name. I looked at Nina, and I don't know if the first row heard me, but I said, holy beep, really loud. It was enough that my mom was able to read my lips, and she was just like shaking her head. But in that moment, it even at that, like, it was so empowering that people saw the message and looked beyond what the fall was, and maybe the fall was involved. I have no clue. I will probably never know to this day. But to have that moment, which this was not why I signed on to do this. I signed on to do this, number one, to raise money for an organization I was passionate about, but number two, to try something that scared the crap out of me. And here we are in this moment, and we're being recognized for it. It was just such an awesome moment. And then to hear afterwards, after we were announced, the deafening applause from the crowd, but also the comments and people telling me like the stories that you heard, like, you got up. People actually thought it was part of the routine because the way that we got up so fast. But that's also, attributed to my theater background. I watched the video. I think I watched the video with you.
Yes.
Year after, and I didn't realize how quickly I got up. It felt like an eternity laying there. I was up in seconds. I'm like, okay, now I can see why people thought that it was part of the routine. But it was truly an amazing moment. It was a very emotional moment. And a lot of people don't know this too. My shoes were so like slippery there that I almost wiped out walking to get the award.
Yes.
And which would have been fantastic, but with what Max had said, it really dawned on me afterwards that dance is not intended to be pretty. It's about really telling a story. And even, a competitor on the most recent season of Dancing with the Stars, said it best, when there are no words, you sing. Or when the words are too hard, you sing. When there are no words, you dance. And I might not be getting that right. I'm sorry, but in that moment, you don't realize how beautiful pain can be sometimes, and how, looking back on it, how proud I am of that dance, and how proud I am to share that with Mina, and to be recognized for that. I'm truly, truly humbled, even to this day.
Well said. So to end this episode on a lighter note, we'll talk about the fun that we had after this event. So, you work so hard for something, there has to be that release. We're all on cloud nine. even though we're emotionally spent, but we don't want the party to end. So we continue to go meet in the hotel bar, then hang out in what we call the rage room afterwards for multiple hours. And then photos like this all of a sudden surface. So what is going on here?
Oh my God. Um, so those that know me really well know that I think weaves are the most hysterical things ever. Like who makes a weave? Like, what do you do for a living? I make hair, you know? So the girls are all getting ready prior to, and Lisa is getting her weave in. She's getting this, piece of hair in. And I am like watching this like a hawk. Like there's nothing else to do but watch, everybody get ready and you're visiting with people. But I'm watching her put this weave in. And then of course I'm like touching it. Like, wow, this really feels like hair. And she's like, don't touch it, it's in place. And whatever. I'm like, I am gonna wear that by the end of the night. And so, like you had said, afterwards we're celebrating, we're having a great time. And I was hanging out with Lisa's sister and brother-in-law. And Lisa and Mike stopped by. And Lisa was having a great time. So I hadn't seen her for a couple hours. She was having a great time. And Mike was done. I think he was going to go to bed. And I'm like, Lisa, we got to go to the rage room. They want us at the rage room. And we managed to get Mike to say, yeah, okay, she's your problem. You take care of her. Make sure she gets back to her room. And so Lisa was with me. And Lisa, as we're walking out, takes her weave off and throws it at me. So I am walking around with this weave in my hair across the Hyatt, all the way to the rage room. And I think even Jody will be like, that goddamn weave. Like, she's just like, because I'm running around. I think I'm doing the wobble. I found champagne. I'm like drinking all this alcohol. I'm eating all this food. And I'm running around with Lisa's weave. And so then we get a photo. Lisa's like, we gotta get a photo because I'm gonna go to bed pretty soon. And so this is me with Lisa's weave in my hair. Mind you, she wore this the entire night. She wore this during her routine. This is my favorite photo of that night. So this is prior to us going down. And this is after she threw it in. We're like, Lisa, walk with me. And she goes, you have to hold on to me. She actually fell asleep on me right here. And so it kind of looks like one of those romance novel covers. Yeah. But nobody realizes that I'm actually wearing her weave in there. But yeah, so I wore Lisa Pritzel's weave half of the night. And it was an exhilarating experience. I really want to know what she says about this. If she even remembers it. I don't know if she remembers any of it. I just remember posting this photo when I got it sent to me. And she's like, when was that taken? And when did you get my weave? And I'm like, you threw the weave at me and put it in my head and got pictures with me. And she didn't remember any of this, but I would love for her I want to get her side of this story if I was, truly just mesmerized by the weave or if I actually was a creeper that night. I don't know.
Unfortunately, I've already interviewed her for Diaries, and I did not. I saved this for you. So had I known this part of the story, I would have thrown that in there.
Lisa's a great sport, but this is a testament to how close we are, that she can fall asleep with me. I'll take care of her. It's a good time. She'll let me wear a weave. It's a plus.
And we ended, you really can't say the night, because at this point it was almost 5 in the morning, and one of my favorite photos and favorite moments. So what do you recall from all of this?
Nobody in this photo is sober, first off. So we'll just leave it at that. But I remember there was this kind of unsung rule that I had heard amongst DWOS alums, that it's a race to try to be the last star dancer up at the end of the night. And so Jody was fully like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be the last one standing. I'm like, no, you're not, bitch. So I'm, it's back and forth. And so I was up, as I mentioned earlier, I was up at like 4:45 in the morning. I didn't go to bed, I want to say till like 5:30, 6 a.m. And we had to check out of the hotel by like 10, 11 o'clock. But we stayed long enough, and we were the final five that were in that room, and we were sitting there drinking and eating good food. And I remember you saying, we got to go out to the lobby because Max and Peter are going to be leaving momentarily. So we went out there, and we're just standing around it. All of a sudden, you could see them coming down in the elevator because they have the glass elevators at the Hyatt. You can see them coming down. And they get down, and they round the corner, and they look at us, and Peter's eyes are like wide-eyed. It was like that, oh shit look, like we've been caught. So we see them, of course, we're giving hugs and whatnot. We got to get one more selfie. They were tore up. They were still drunk from hanging out with Chris Manglis over at 335. You can see it in Max's eyes, how hammered he was. But they were great. They were just like, okay, let's do this, but we gotta go. We gotta catch a flight. So we snapped a photo, and they took off, and I looked at y'all, and I was like, I'm going to bed. And I remember walking to the elevators, and all I hear is Jody Wires going, I win! I win! You can't win them all, Jody. Like, come on, I was exhausted. But it was a great night. This was a great memory. I love this photo.
It was an awesome way to end the night. And yeah, thankfully, Peter and Max did make it back on their flight to Los Angeles. But to be able to capture this one more selfie, it was a fitting end to what was an amazing evening and an amazing run. And Dan, we appreciate you sharing your story and pulling back the curtain to be a part of the DWOS Diaries, share your 2 dancing experiences and all of your commitment to the American Red Cross. So for that, we salute you and we say, thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, sir. This was a lot of fun.